Hi everyone, I'm Nate and welcome to Elevate with Nate, the place where we're all about learning, self-improvement and motivation, and where I discuss topics that I've learned in the last 24 hours, new things I didn't know before. And I encourage you to, in the comments, let me know what you've learned today, what new things you've learned and improved on. So, in today's episode, we'll be discussing political ideologies. So you might ask, why this topic today? And it was simply this. I often watch these videos on YouTube, these from the news programs and people having discussions, debates, and often they use these big words, totalitarianism, hedonism, and all these things. And normally, you can still understand more or less what's being said without knowing the exact definition. But I thought, do I actually know 100% what these things actually mean? So I went, you know what? Let's look it up. Let's learn today. So that's forever in the future, when I hear these words, these ideologies, I know what they now mean. So I've made a quick little PowerPoint with some bits and bobs because I want to make sure not to get this wrong, because some can be a bit nuanced and quite similar. But yeah, so let's go through it. And again, this won't be all the different types, it's just a selection. So again, if in the comments you want to give us your input, if you might know a lot more about this than I do, then please do. Please tell me what I've missed out, what you feel could be mentioned more on this topic. So please comment. So let's start with the following. And we have two terms here, totalitarianism, an absolute mouthful, and fascism, which are both underneath this kind of parent title of authoritarianism, another mouthful. But let's go through this. So, totalitarianism, and essentially a form of government in which the state seeks to control every aspect of public and private life. This could be the economy, education, art, science, and even people's personal lives, okay? They use extensive propaganda, surveillance and repression to maintain the power. So examples of this would be in Nazi Germany and Stalinist, the Soviet Union, Russia back in the day. So, that's what totalitarianism was meant to be. And then fascism at face value appear to be quite similar, but I think the idea here is more that there's a stronger emphasis on nationalism and often racism. Okay, so whereas the one before was more, I think, about just being in control, this is we're in control and we like a certain kind of people. Okay, so and often apparently they glorified the military strength and war. And examples will be again Nazi Germany, but also Mussolini's Italy. So they're similar, but again, there's some nuance there. And again, please comment if there's more to add on this. So on to the next one here. We've got, again, the general kind of parent titles, collectivism. And in that, you've got communism, socialism, and anarchism. So let's start with communism here. And again, this is kind of an ideology advocating for a classless society in which the means of production are owned communally, okay? It's a communal system here. There's no private property and wealth distributed according to need, okay? And the whole goal is to achieve equal distribution of resources. So again, examples would be the Soviet Union and Maoist China. Socialism here has some similarities, but one of the main distinctions is that this can still exist within a democratic framework. Okay, it may include a mix of public and private ownership. So it aims to reduce income inequality and provide public welfare services, such as healthcare and education. So I think in the Scandinavian countries they're trying this with Sweden, Norway, but of course, let's say in the UK where I'm from, the UK's NHS, that of course is really free for the public. And then this one I quite like, this is anarchism here. And it's the abolition of all forms of hierarchical authority, including the state, capitalism and other forms of coercive control. And this seeks to create a stateless society based on voluntary cooperation and mutual aid. And I like this because I read on this topic that it's often misunderstood as chaos. And I can agree. When I hear anarchism, I think chaos, people breaking things and going against the rules. When really it's really promoting organised structures without a centralised authority. And there's an example here, which apparently is back in Catalonia in Spain, between 1936 and 1939, where workers collectively managed industries and resources without a centralised government. But I think then Franco came in, and then that was the end of that. So the next one here is individualism. So we have capitalism, liberalism, and democracy. So capitalism, it's an economic system characterised by private ownership of the means of production and pursuit of profits. And in this system, the market forces determine the production, distribution, and the prices of goods and services. It promotes innovation, economic growth, but can also lead to income inequality. So this is what we see often, I would say more in the Western world, USA, Japan too, of course, especially those kind of countries where you're going to have always very rich millionaire, billionaires, but also very poor people. So that's capitalism. Whereas liberalism is more political philosophy centered on the values of liberty, equality, and individual rights. It advocates for a government that is limited in its powers and exists to protect the freedoms of its citizens. It supports a democratic government, free markets, and civil liberties. And again, we've got, this is most of the Western world, the USA and European democracies. And again, this one should be hopefully common sense to most people, but democracy, where we have the power to decide for elections who's going to represent the countries. Emphasis on political equality, majority rule, the protection of minority rights. The citizens will participate in free and fair elections to choose their leaders and influence legislation. So again, similarly, similar countries in USA, India, etc. This one here, it's not standalone, but you've got conservatism, and this is the ideology that emphasises the preservation of traditional institutions, values, and practices, and they advocate for gradual change rather than radical reform, emphasising stability, continuity, and respect for established customs. They often prioritise a national sovereignty, can't say that word today. Sovereignty, law and order, and free market principles. And examples could be the US Republican Party, UK Conservative Party. So this one is going to be quite interesting here. You've got monarchical or traditional, and that's going to be in parents. And within that, you've got monarchy and theocracy. So monarchy, probably most you have heard of and understand. That's where you're going to have like a single person, the monarch, who holds sovereign authority, and it's often inherited through a family line. But of course, there'll be here two different types, right? You've got the ceremonial, for monarchy, and absolute. So with the absolute version, they have complete control, as a ruler, whereas in the ceremonial, that's like in the UK, where it's simply they have limited political power. It's more the ceremonial and as a face, let's say, like the king or the queen. Whereas say Saudi Arabia will have their head is going to be in charge of everything and doesn't mix the rules. And theocracy is like a similar thing here, but it's now done on religious views and religion. So the religious leaders, kind of all the institutions hold the political power, and the state's legal system is based on religious law. And these governments often claim to be guided by divine guidance and religious doctrine. So examples would be, say, Iran and, say, imagine the Pope in the Vatican City. So we've got a few more here now, which, they're not technically government ideologies, but just a few other I'm guessing, views or these words you might have heard, when watching these videos and YouTube. So hedonism, and this is a doctrine that emphasizes the pursuit of pleasure and avoidance of pain as the highest good. Okay, so it focuses on maximizing happiness and enjoyments in life. You're often valuing the personal freedom and indulgence. Okay, it's about carefree, we want to have fun, have happiness, and that's the important stuff. So that's what that means. Okay, we've got two more here, more about, let's say, let's put on money, let's say. You've got corporatism. This is an ideology and political system where society and the economy are organised into collective groups. Okay, you've got all in groups, such as labour, business, and other interest groups. And they collaborate with the state to influence policy and decision making. And the state seeks to harmonise the interests of these groups to maintain social order and avoid class conflict. So this, for example, would be Mussolini's Italy. Whereas, slightly similar but also different, you've got corporatocracy, and this is here where you have a system where the corporate interests have significant control over political and economic decisions, often at the expense of democratic processes and public interests. So, in a corporatocracy, you have large organisations and their leaders who have very big influence over the government policies, which lead to concerns about the erosion of democratic accountability. So again, this here I just simply took from a website. It said, example could be the concerns in the USA about lobbying and political influence. I don't personally know much about this lobbying and its influence, but in the comments, tell me what you think on this. If you know about this stuff, is it a corporatocracy in the USA? Let us know. Let's discuss. So we've got a few more here, not too many more, but we've got technocracy. There we go. And this is a system of governance where decision makers are selected based on their expertise in certain fields, particularly science and technology. Now, this isn't really, actually implemented in governments to elect who's in charge of the whole country, but maybe in certain policy areas, this kind of ideology can hold. Meritocracy, again, this is kind of done by your merit. It's about we're going to select people based on their abilities, their talents, their achievements, rather than their social status or wealth. So you'd like to think this is the case in jobs or job promotion, though of course it might not. It's simply an ideology here. Often it's, what do they say? It's not what you know, it's who you know. That'd be against meritocracy. So we've got plutocracy, and this is where we have a form of governance where the power is held by the wealthy elite. So, the economic wealth will translate directly into political influence and control, often into policies that favour the interests of the rich. Again, this is not an official government form, but we've probably seen this in the past in certain countries. And the last one here, republicanism, is an ideology that advocates for a government in which the head of state is elected or appointed rather than inherited. And it emphasises the rule of law, separation of powers, and civic partnership. And so examples will be here, the USA and France, but there'll be many more. So that's all from today's episode here, just mentioning some of these things. It might be that the majority you already knew of, but potentially some that you weren't too certain about the definitions, and hopefully now you have a better understanding about it. So you next hear these YouTube people say these big words, you understand what exactly they're on about. But as ever, let me know in the comments what you learned today, and like, comment, let me know what to do in the next video. Let's have a discussion. As ever, it's Nate. It's been great. Onwards and upwards.